So STAR focuses on an empowerment model when we're working with our survivors. In that way, we view ourselves as partners with the clients we're working with. They're the expert in their lives, and so we're just there to provide that extra bit of support and just kind of help them as they're navigating their healing process. Additionally, STAR really works to empower and support the growth of the people who work for the agency. A lot of people have been with the agency for a fair amount of time. I've been with STAR for about 3.5 years, and the agency as a whole is really focusing on growth and sustainability. So I think specifically about our counseling director in New Orleans, Portia, who started as an advocate in Baton Rouge, got her master's in counseling, came down to New Orleans to help open up the New Orleans office and was a counselor, and then was promoted to counseling director, and just really growing her skills and her as an individual professional. And then finally, one of the things we hear from a lot of survivors is that they oftentimes didn't realize what happened to them with sexual assault because they didn't fully understand consent. And so we're using our community education program to really increase knowledge and awareness about what consent is, what healthy relationships look like, and what autonomy means to each individual. Yeah, so there are a lot of challenges to doing this work, and when I was talking with my colleagues about this question in particular, the thing that kept coming up was this idea that, okay, we want to stop sexual violence in the community, but people often want to stop a very specific idea of sexual violence and don't realize that sexual violence is a continuum. It's everything from street-based harassment to forced sex work and everything in between. And when people think about sexual violence, they oftentimes are just thinking about rape or attempted rape or child molestation. And at STAR, we look at the whole picture. And so we know that when we allow people to get away with street harassment and unwanted groping and touching, then that encourages those perpetrators to increase their violence and move down the continuum and potentially attempt or complete a rape on someone. So that's a huge challenge, is in letting people know that sexual violence isn't just one thing, it's all these different things. And our society in general can find it really hard to change, especially when the change is going to be difficult and uncomfortable. And we're slowly seeing that happening as more and more survivors are coming forward and speaking out. But for every survivor that has the courage to speak out and is believed, we have a perpetrator who is not sentenced to jail time, who is given probation for being a good citizen or for having made a mistake. And so working to fight against that and lifting up survivors is a huge challenge. And I mean, if you ask any nonprofit, the answer to what we need is money. It's always money. Louisiana as a state does not provide any funding for sexual assault agencies. Yeah, there is funding for domestic violence agencies, which is great, but nothing specifically for sexual assault agencies. So our funding comes from federal funds, it comes from local grants and foundations, donors, volunteers, that sort of thing. Saying this, but all politics are local, and women make up 51% of our population. And unfortunately, we do not make up 51% of who represents us at all levels of government. So I think once we get women in more places of power who are, and when I say women, I'm thinking about progressive individuals who are focused on the empowerment and betterment of women, we're going to see greater changes. We know women are paid much less than men, white men in this state and across the country, and unfortunately our legislators were unable to pass the ERA, so the Equal Rights Amendment, which was frustrating. But for me, an equitable and just future looks like a place where women and female identifying folks and non-binary folks are able to live their lives the way they want to and are comfortable and are safe to do so and don't fear certain areas or going out after dark, and know that their jobs are dependent on their skills and not about how they present themselves. So B. Mike, love pretty much everything he does. For Maker, Kelsey of Fringe & Co., her head wraps, her shirts, everything about it is just amazing. And then when I think about activists in our community, I really think about Women with a Vision and the work they're doing, especially Dion Haywood, who's their executive director, and then Nia Weeks, who is a community member who's been doing so much work to really lift the voices of women of color through Citizen She. But, I mean, I could keep listing them, but New Orleans is amazing.